Summer vacation. During the summer break from university, I took a temporary job at a hotel. The system operations were straightforward, and the manager trained me for just half a day before putting me on duty. The hotel wasn't big and was conveniently close to my home. The work at the front desk was relatively easy. On the third day of my shift, just after noon, a pregnant woman walked in. She looked to be around 27 or 28, with a slender frame but carrying a large belly. Her belly was so big it seemed she was about to give birth. I couldn't help but feel anxious. How could her family let her wander around alone like this? The pregnant woman approached the front desk, took out her ID, and said, "Hello, my name is Xiao Meishi. This is my identification card. I have a colleague staying here, and my boss asked me to deliver some documents to him, but I don't know his room number. I do have his ID number. Could you help me check which room he's staying in?" I entered the ID number she provided and saw the room was 403. Room 403. I suddenly remembered. Earlier this morning, around 11 o'clock, a man and a woman had walked in hand and booked a short stay room. They were already quite intimate in the lobby, and once they got into the elevator, they were all over each other, kissing and hugging passionately, giving me quite the spectacle. At the time, I thought they were just a regular couple caught up in the moment. Now I realized it was a scumbag cheating on his wife during her pregnancy. What a disgrace. "I'm sorry," I said. "Perhaps you could call him to confirm the room number. It's against policy to disclose guest room numbers." I repeated, "It's indeed our policy not to reveal room numbers to others. But if a pregnant woman insists on taking over my computer, there's not much I can do, right?" Unfortunately, the pregnant woman didn't catch my hint. She simply shook her head and said, "No, that's okay. I'll just wait for him here." She wobbled over to a sofa in the lobby and sat down. Her hands clenched the hem of her skirt tightly, then suddenly let go. Her face was unnaturally pale, and beads of sweat kept forming on her forehead. Her lips were even bitten until they bled. I sighed, adjusted the computer screen brightness to its maximum, and set it to stay lit. Before leaving the front desk to use the restroom, I approached her and seriously reminded her, "Ma'am, I'm going to the restroom now. Please, whatever you do, don't peek at the screen to check the room number." The pregnant woman froze for a moment, then her eyes suddenly lit up. "Okay, thank you," she said. I lingered in the restroom for about 5 minutes. When I came back out, the woman was no longer despondent. She was full of energy, making phone calls with determination. Not long after, a van pulled up in front of the hotel. 7 or 8 strong young men got out, one of them carrying a video camera. Leading the group was an older woman, who approached the pregnant woman and asked, "Where are those 2 shameless people?" The pregnant woman replied, "They're upstairs." "All right, let's see how we deal with them today," said the older woman. As the group headed toward the elevator, I quickly stepped in to stop them. "Guests not staying here must register first." Yes, register first," the pregnant woman said cooperatively. "You all register first. Don't cause trouble for others." After the registration process, the group went upstairs. About 10 minutes later, the police arrived. "Who reported someone engaging in illicit activity here?" they asked. I pointed upstairs. "Probably room 403. The police went up and stayed for quite a while, then came back down with a noisy group of people. The scumbag and the mistress were both disheveled but unharmed. The mistress kept her head down, avoiding eye contact, while the scumbag, like a cornered dog, complained to the officers. "Officer, you have to help me. My colleague and I were just taking a nap here during lunch break, but these people barged into our room as soon as we opened the door and tried to beat me up." All right, the officer said impatiently. "Did they touch you?" "No," the scumbag faltered. "But as soon as they came in, they started filming us with a camera." "What is this?" "Right, they violated my portrait rights. I want to press charges," he added indignantly. The police were speechless. "This isn't a violation of portrait rights. What's going on here?" The officer held up the scumbag's phone and pointed at the transaction records. "Half an hour ago, you transferred 2,000 yuan to this lady. given the large amount of money involved. This behavior could already be classified as solicitation. The scumbag was so terrified he waved his hands frantically. No, it's not solicitation. It's not solicitation. She's my colleague. She just mentioned wanting to buy a gold necklace, so I transferred her $2,000. Oh, so you're in an extramarital affair, the officer retorted. When the manager found out about the incident, he scolded me for half an hour. But the very next day, a banner praising me was delivered to the hotel. On the banner, a bold line of text read, "Scumbag Slayer, Savior of Pregnant Women." The manager was stunned, awkwardly rubbing his hands together. The person who brought the banner was the young man leading the group that day. In addition to the banner, he handed me a generous red envelope. "My cousin hasn't been feeling well recently and is in the hospital, so she couldn't come to thank you in person. She specifically asked me to express her gratitude to you." That man was someone she met through a matchmaking introduction. At first, she thought he was honest and dependable. Who would have guessed? After she got pregnant, he started having an affair with a colleague. My cousin had already noticed some signs, but his whole family is shameless. They thought her pregnancy would make her easier to control. They even told her to endure it for the sake of the child. What man doesn't cheat? Can you believe they said that? Is that something a human being should say? Now that there's evidence, my cousin is ready to file for divorce. And as for the child, that family can forget about it. We can afford to raise the baby ourselves. I nodded repeatedly, agreeing wholeheartedly. Exactly. Sunk costs shouldn't hold you back. It's better to walk away from decisions that don't benefit you. After the young man left, the manager had no temper left to vent. He sighed and said, "You're a young girl, and it's good to have a sense of justice. But you should also think about your own safety." He spoke earnestly. "Did it ever occur to you, if Mrs. Xiao had let it slip that you helped her, what would have happened when that guy freed up his hands and came after you?" I scratched my head. At the time, I was so indignant about the scumbag cheating during his wife's pregnancy that I didn't think of anything else. The manager sighed again. "All right, you'll switch to the night shift for the next few days, just in case he comes looking for trouble." The wisdom of the old truly prevails. Although Mrs. Xiao didn't reveal anything, the scumbag still suspected me. He came to the hotel twice, causing a scene, claiming our management was lax and accusing us of leaking guest privacy. The manager managed to smooth things over both times. Luckily, since the scumbag's company was nearby, he didn't dare make a bigger fuss for fear of embarrassing himself. After that, he never came back. I resumed my night shifts peacefully. The night shift security guard, an elderly man with a kind demeanor, was easy to get along with. When there were no guests, the two of us would often squat together and snack on sunflower seeds. That night, a man rushed into the front desk, slapped his ID on the counter, and said, "I need a room with a king-sized bed." Following the procedure, I booked him room 416. Not long after he went upstairs, a woman with heavy makeup and a lowered hat brim sneakily tried to head upstairs as well. "Excuse me, guests who aren't staying here need to register first," I reminded her. The woman ignored me and walked straight ahead. I quickly moved to block her path. "Ma'am, please register first." Annoyed, she brushed my hand aside. "I didn't bring my ID," she said. "If you don't have an ID, you'll need to go to the nearby police station to get a temporary one before you can go upstairs," I replied. "I'm just going upstairs to deliver something. I'll leave right after." "Why make it so complicated?" "I'm sorry, but it's the policy. Anyone going upstairs must register," I insisted. "You're such a rigid little girl," she huffed. Our argument caught the attention of the security guard, who walked over and stood in front of her. "It's the policy. If you want to go upstairs, you have to register." The woman cursed a few times but eventually, reluctantly, made a phone call. Before she could hang up, the front desk phone rang. It was the guest from room 416. "Hello, the woman downstairs is my girlfriend. She's just coming up to sit with me for a while. Could you let her through?" "I'm sorry, but hotel policy requires everyone going upstairs to register," I replied. The man tried everything he could to convince me, but when he realized I wasn't budging, He hung up in anger. The woman's phone rang next. She glared at me fiercely as she answered, then stormed off in her high heels, muttering angrily. Girlfriend, huh? Since when can't girlfriends register? I spread my hands helplessly. The security guard scratched his bald head awkwardly. Maybe they had a fight, he offered. I thought that was the end of it. But about 10 minutes later, the front desk phone rang again. It was 416. Hello, how can I help you? The man hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice and asked conspiratorially. Do you provide special services? Special services. I caught on quickly. Of course. We offer laundry, car hailing, and ticket booking services. Oh, and we can also arrange for a massage service, I whispered. The man perked up immediately. Yes, the massage service. I want that. However, our partnered provider is a bit pricey. The 100-minute silk aromatherapy SPA costs a premium. Payment is required upfront, and it's non-refundable. Can you accept that? I asked. Yes, I'll take it. The man nodded enthusiastically. Great. Please scan the QR code above the minibar to pay. Once the payment is successful, a masseur will come to your room shortly. The man thanked me profusely and hung up. 5 minutes later, Uncle Wang, who ran the massage parlor next door, arrived with a large bag. Uncle Wang, nearly 50 years old, was tall, muscular, and had a booming voice. Since it was late, he brought me some snacks and drinks, as well as a pack of cigarettes for the security guard. Which guest ordered the massage? He asked. Room 416. Just head upstairs, I replied with a smile. As soon as Uncle Wang went up, the phone at the front desk rang again. It was 416. The man's voice sounded desperate. I ordered a 100-minute silk aromatherapy SPA. That's exactly what you got, I replied calmly. Our provider uses exclusive scented essential oils. You can rest assured it's very relaxing. That's not what I meant. The man's voice faltered. After a long pause, he finally burst out. I don't care. I want a refund. Sir, as we explained before you purchased, this service is non-refundable, I said evenly. I don't care. I'm calling the police. This is fraud. I sighed. Sir, I understand your concern, but refunds are out of my hands. The payment has already been transferred to the masseur, the one who just went up. You're welcome to discuss it with him directly. Or, if you're really unsatisfied, you can file a police report. The line went dead with a loud click. An hour and a half later, Uncle Wang came downstairs. Did the guest ask for a refund? I asked, grinning. Uncle Wang looked puzzled. No, he didn't. He seemed pretty satisfied, actually. I glanced at Uncle Wang's muscular frame, barely able to hold back my laughter. After all the chaos, it was already 4 a.m. The security guard and I sat down, finally taking a breather. Suddenly, the screen in the lobby, which usually looped environmental awareness videos, flickered. The next second, a sultry woman's voice came through. Don't, stop it. On the screen, bare bodies intertwined in an explicit display. The security guard and I were stunned. Could this be a guest casting the wrong screen? I asked hesitantly after a long pause. Maybe. Probably. The security guard stammered in response. The remote, which hadn't been used in ages, was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, the scene on the screen became more outrageous. Finally, I decided to cut to the chase. I pulled the plug. Silence returned to the world at last. Just as peace settled, a young couple walked into the lobby. Excuse me, are there any rooms available? Standing at the entrance were a young man and woman, both looking like college students. They were an attractive pair, intimately close, with a faint scent of alcohol lingering around them. My heart swelled with emotion. After working so many night shifts, I finally saw a real couple. There are still true couples in this world. After all the absurdities I'd witnessed these past days, I could now tell at a glance whether a man and woman were genuinely together or part of a transaction. The young man handed over 2 IDs and said, "Could you please book us a king-sized bedroom?" "Thank you. My pleasure. It's what we're here for," I replied. I prepared the room and respectfully handed them the key card. The girl held the young man's arm as they walked to the elevator. Leaning close to him, I could faintly hear her teasing, "Stop it. You're so annoying." Before the elevator doors closed, I saw the young man bend down affectionately, pinching her cheek with a smile. They truly look like a couple deeply in love. In my time working at the hotel front desk, I'd seen countless absurdities. I had walked confidently down the path of staying single and childless. Yet, watching this ordinary young couple, I felt a sliver of faith in pure love rekindle within me. But I was too naive. 2 days later, I saw the young man again. It was 11:30 p.m., and he was booking another room. This time, however, the girl by his side was different. The first girl had looked young, with a round, sweet face. This time, the girl was tall and slender, with straight, chestnut-colored hair, looking sharp and capable. The two walked into the lobby hand in hand. The man coaxed the woman to sit aside, then approached the desk with his ID. "King-sized bedroom, please," he said. After a brief pause, he added, "Could I have room 307 again? I'd like to stay in that room." After so many days at the front desk, I'd encountered guests requesting upgrades, but this was the first time someone asked for a specific room. Puzzled, I glanced at the system. Room 307 was marked as vacant. My thoughts swirled, and I replied differently than planned. "I'm sorry, but 307 has been booked. In fact, all standard king rooms are full tonight. The only available option is a deluxe king room, which is slightly more expensive. Would that be okay?" "Sure, that's fine," the man said, but his expression carried a hint of disappointment. As the two went upstairs, arms around each other, I called the security guard to take over for a bit. Something clicked in my mind. I needed to check something. I went up to room 307, turned on the light, and examined the furnishings inside. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Since the couple from 2 days ago checked out, no one had stayed in this room. But if there was nothing special about it, why had the man specifically requested 307? After a moment of hesitation, I turned off the lights, opened my phone's camera, and carefully scanned every corner of the room. If there were a hidden camera, the screen would show a red dot or a flickering light, indicating the infrared light source or lens reflection of a pinhole camera. I checked the TV and the set-top box. Nothing. The power outlets. Nothing. The mirror. Nothing. Everywhere I looked, there was nothing. Did I overthink this? I sat on the bed, lost in thought. Absent-mindedly, I looked up. The red light on the smoke detector in the ceiling was glowing steadily. But this time, I noticed something else. Next to the red light, there was a faint, blinking dot. I turned the lights back on and moved closer to the smoke detector, examining its internal structure carefully. It was a camera. I found it. The manager rushed to the hotel in the dead of night, still in his pajamas, his hair sticking out in all directions. The moment he saw me, he started scolding me. "Why didn't you consult me before calling the police? You act first and think later. How can a young girl like you be so bold? And why is it always you?" "All right, enough." The police officer patted the manager on the shoulder. "What's wrong with calling the police? I think she did the right thing. Finding a hidden camera is no small matter. You should call the police immediately. It shows great awareness. If you didn't report this, and a guest later discovered they were secretly recorded, do you think you could avoid the fallout? This is also about protecting your hotel's reputation." Yes, of course," the manager quickly said, forcing a smile. "Officer, what should we do next?" "I've already looked into the situation," the officer said with a cold snort. "The previous guest in this room is still staying in your hotel." The rest of the story was relayed to me by the manager, who adamantly refused to let me get involved. When the police knocked on the door that night, the girl inside was already half undressed, and the man's second phone was hidden in his backpack, silently recording everything in the room. Upon searching the phone, the police found hundreds of secretly recorded videos. The women in the videos were all different. The man's name was Sun Ching, a popular figure from the neighboring school, the star of the basketball team. According to his confession, all the women were his girlfriends. Some he had just met, while others he had been dating for a while. But from the videos, it was clear that most of these girls had been tricked into sleeping with him. Sun Ching claimed he bought the camera to record passionate moments for his personal viewing pleasure. However, further investigation revealed his phone contained numerous pornography apps. For a long time, Sun Cheng had been secretly recording himself and the women during intimate moments, then uploading the videos to these apps for profit. The police's findings showed that the amount of money involved reached hundreds of thousands of yuan, with millions of viewers. At this point, the case took a serious turn. What could have been resolved with detention escalated into a criminal investigation. Sun Cheng was officially charged, and the police also uncovered 2 illegal vendors selling pinhole cameras. The incident was reported by the media and even made it to trending topics. Our hotel was frequently mentioned, but mostly in a positive light. We were praised for the vigilance of our staff and for not shielding the perpetrator for personal gain. Otherwise, who knows how much longer this criminal activity would have gone unnoticed. The manager was deeply moved. Thank goodness you acted decisively and called the police. If this had blown up and implicated our hotel, it would have been a disaster. He gave me a bonus, then purchased a batch of equipment designed to detect hidden cameras. He also instructed the cleaning staff to inspect rooms for cameras after each cleaning. If any were found, they were to call the police immediately. No exceptions. The news kept spreading, and it wasn't long before my parents saw it on their phones. When they realized the incident had happened at our hotel, and that I was the one who reported it, they became frantic. "You're quitting this job right now." My dad was adamant. "It's just a part-time job for pocket money. If you need money, Dad will give it to you." He patted his chest, making a promise. "It's not the same." I waved my hands repeatedly. "What you give me is pocket money. What I earn from this job is my own money." "Fine. Then Dad and Mom can let you earn money, too," my mom said as she patted my head. "Be good, listen to us. Stay home every day and do housework. We'll give you a salary." "Mom," I tugged on her sleeve. "This isn't about money. This is the first time I've earned my own money through my own labor. It means something to me." My dad grew anxious. "But you need to think about your safety, too. This whole situation is so big. What if those people retaliate against you? You're our only child. If something happened to you, your mom and I wouldn't want to live anymore. You should have just called the police anonymously. Why rush in like that on your own?" "Dad, you're wrong about this," I interrupted. "I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I hide or cower?" My dad sighed deeply. "People can be kind-hearted, but they also need to protect themselves. Cutting off someone's income is like killing their parents. Do you realize how many people's livelihoods you've disrupted with this?" After much back and forth, we finally reached a compromise. I could continue working at the hotel, but I would return to school a week early. In other words, my first part-time job would end in 10 days. During these 10 days, my dad would drive me to and from work for safety. The manager also assigned 2 colleagues to the night shift with me to prevent any troublemakers from showing up. One was a man in his 30s named Lin Yi, and the other was a 23-year-old woman named Xiao Wen, who had just graduated from university. She was working at the front desk while preparing for the civil service exam. When Xiao Wen heard I was the one who reported the hidden camera, she hooked her arm around mine and showered me with praise. "You're amazing. If it were me, I don't think I'd have even noticed something was wrong. And even if I had found the camera, I probably wouldn't have dared to call the police." Lin Yi, standing nearby, rolled his eyes. "At the end of the day, isn't it those girls who don't know how to respect themselves? A self-respecting girl wouldn't check into a hotel room with a man before marriage." Sure, the guy was wrong, but do those girls bear no responsibility at all? These young girls nowadays, they have no sense of self-discipline. If they got secretly recorded, it's their own fault. I was about to argue, but Xiao Wen stopped me. "Don't waste your breath," she whispered. "He's a 24-carat straight man. You can't reason with him. Everyone in the hotel knows. He's practically from the Qing dynasty." She leaned closer to me and added with a smirk, "Even the cleaning ladies gossip about him." With more staff around, the night shifts became livelier. We split the 12-hour shift into 3 4-hour rotations. During Lin Yi's shift, Xiao Wen and I would sit in a corner of the lobby playing mobile games. while the security guard occasionally took a nap. Tonight, just as we finished a game, I looked up and glanced around. I saw 3 figures swaying as they entered the elevator. From the back, it looked like 2 men and a woman. The girl was slender, her long hair reaching her waist. Dressed in a short skirt and black stockings, she looked stunning. She seemed to have had too much to drink. She couldn't even stand properly, her body sliding toward the ground as the 2 men held her up between them. Something didn't feel right. Xiaowen noticed my unease. "What's wrong?" she asked. "2 men and a woman just went upstairs," I said. "Oh, that's normal," Xiaowen waved dismissively. "There's a whole street of bars nearby. Every day, people come here to book rooms after drinking. Even 2 men and a woman having some fun together isn't that unusual." I tried to rationalize it, but something about the situation still didn't sit well with me. I went to the front desk to check the recent room bookings. The 2 men had just booked room 504, but only 2 men's IDs were registered. "Didn't 3 people just go up?" I asked. Lin Yi frowned. "What 3 people? There were only 2 men." "But I clearly saw 2 men taking a woman upstairs," I insisted. "You must have seen wrong. Only 2 men came to book a room," Lin Yi said impatiently. Our argument escalated until Xiao Wen and the security guard stepped in to mediate. "Why argue? Let's just check the security footage," Xiao Wen suggested. She fast-forwarded to the relevant clip. 5 minutes earlier, 2 men had walked up to the front desk and booked a twin room. Lin Yi pointed at the screen smugly. "See? I told you it was just 2 people." I ignored him and kept watching. After booking the room, the 2 men went upstairs in the elevator, but less than 2 minutes later, they came back down, left the hotel, and returned shortly after with a woman. The woman had long hair, wore a short skirt, and was visibly drunk. The men were practically dragging her into the elevator. Lin Yi's expression changed. I didn't see that," he stammered. "The front desk counter was tall enough that someone slouched in a chair might miss what was happening." "Well, now you've seen it," I said, grabbing his arm. "Come on, we need to check on them. If we wait any longer, it could be too late." Lin Yi yanked his arm away and snapped. "I'm not going." "Are you crazy? Why do you keep sticking your nose into everything? It's none of our business." He pointed a finger at me, his voice rising in anger. "That girl's dressed like that, drinking so much at this hour. Isn't she just asking for it? If you go up there and interrupt them, how do you think they'll react?" "Excuse me," I nearly laughed in disbelief. "Are you even listening to yourself? You seriously think a girl's safety is less important than satisfying your lower instincts?" "What girl?" Lin Yi sneered. "Look at that skirt, it's so short. She's obviously a so a short skirt makes her a prostitute. Does that mean your shorts make you a gigolo?" I shot back. Fuming, I stopped wasting time on him. I grabbed the master key card and turned to Xiao Wen and the security guard. "Let's go." Lin Yi stood behind us, shouting, "Don't come crying to me if you get hurt." When we reached room 504, we could already hear faint cries coming from inside. "Stop it. Don't touch me. Help." The girls' desperate pleas mixed with the men's mocking laughter. There was no need to guess what was happening inside. The 3 of us exchanged glances. Our faces pale. Xiaowen held up her phone, signaling that she was calling the police. The security guard and I approached the door. He hesitated, hand raised to knock. "Maybe we should wait for the police," he whispered. "What if it's too late by then?" I argued, taking a deep breath. I knocked firmly on the door. Bang, bang, bang. The noise inside abruptly stopped. After a long pause, a man's irritated voice called out, "What is it?" Clearing my throat, I replied loudly, "Routine room check by the hotel staff." "What check?" "We don't need a check." "Sorry, it's a requirement," I said. "If you don't cooperate, we'll have to call the police." Inside the room, silence fell again. After a long pause, the man finally cursed under his breath and opened the door. "You're just looking for trouble." He stood shirtless in the doorway, glaring at me as if about to unleash a tirade. But the sight of the security guard's uniform behind me made him think twice. "Fine, check the room," he said, stepping aside begrudgingly. I glanced around the room, empty, but the bathroom door was tightly shut. I walked over and reached for the doorknob. The man immediately stepped in front of me, blocking my way. "My friend is in the bathroom. What do you think you're doing?" He was tall and imposing, looking down at me with a hostile glare. I met his gaze head-on. "Sorry, but I need to account for everyone in the room. I already told you, there are just 2 of us in here. What's your problem?" "Sorry, but we need to confirm that ourselves," I replied firmly. "What do you want to see? Huh? You want to watch my buddy use the bathroom? What kind of pervert are you?" He smirked and began unbuckling his pants. "If you're so curious, why not look at me instead?" I instinctively moved to shield my eyes, but the security guard quickly stepped between us. "Young man," he said, his voice calm yet authoritative, "there's no need to bully this young lady. We're just doing a routine room check. It's hotel policy. Please don't make things difficult for us." The commotion attracted the attention of other guests. The couple from room 503 peeked out. The husband, a towering figure over 6 feet tall, decided to get involved. "Wait a minute," he said. "Where's the woman in your room?" "My wife and I heard her voice just now. There was definitely a woman in there." The man tried to deny it. "What woman?" "It's just me and my buddy in here." "Then open the bathroom door," the husband said, reaching for the doorknob. "If there's no woman, you've got nothing to hide." "What? Can't let another guy see?" Before he could turn the knob, the man grabbed his wrist and wrenched it away. "So there is something going on," the husband sneered, tightening his grip. As their confrontation escalated, Xiao Wen arrived with the police. The crowd quickly explained the situation to the officers. The man stood silently in front of the bathroom door, his face ashen. "Open the door," one officer commanded. The man hesitated. "Officer, I..." "Open the door now." The officer raised his voice. The man's lips trembled violently. After a moment, he silently turned the knob. Inside the bathroom, a second man was holding a slender woman. One arm was wrapped tightly around her waist, the other around her neck, choking her. When he saw the police, he froze in terror and immediately released her. The woman collapsed to the floor, clutching her throat and coughing uncontrollably. The red marks on her neck were stark and unmistakable. It took her a while to catch her breath. When she regained consciousness and saw the police uniforms, she crawled out of the bathroom and clung to the officer's leg, sobbing uncontrollably. "Officer, help me. They tried to rape me. And when I resisted, they tried to kill me to keep me quiet." Her tears streamed down her face, her makeup smeared beyond recognition. The police arrested all 3 men. Xiao Wen, the security guard, the husband from 503, and I were taken to the police station as witnesses. The woman, still shaken, was fully sober now. In the police car, she made a phone call. By the time we arrived at the station, her friend was already waiting at the entrance. The moment she saw him, she ran into his arms, crying hysterically. "Xiao Hua, you scared me to death. I turned around for 1 second, and you were gone." The 2 of them clung to each other, sobbing uncontrollably. During the questioning, I learned their story. The 2 had been high school classmates and lived in the same neighborhood. They usually worked in different cities, but happened to return home at the same time, so they decided to catch up. After several drinks, the woman was tired and tipsy, dozing off where they had been sitting. Her friend, still clear-headed, tried to hail a cab. When the driver couldn't find their location, she left her at the entrance and went to guide him. In that brief moment, lasting no more than a minute, the 2 men from room 504 abducted her. By the time her friend called her phone, she was already being dragged into the hotel. Unable to find her, her friend reported the incident to the bar owner and also called 911. Earlier, the 2 men had attempted to assault her. However, after we found them, the man in the bathroom tried to strangle her unconscious, fearing her cries would expose them. This was their excuse. The woman's statement was simpler. "They tried to kill me to silence me. I'm pressing charges for attempted murder." After my statement, I returned to the hotel and was met by my parents, who immediately scolded me. Once done yelling, they insisted I quit my job. Then they took me to buy a new phone, calling it a reward for bravery. Their actions were contradictory. As for the case, I don't know how it ended. All I heard was no settlement was reached, as the woman insisted on court. Regardless of the verdict, those 2 men would undoubtedly spend years in prison. And with that, My first part-time job ended. On the day I returned to school, I visited the hotel to say goodbye. Xiaowen happened to be on duty. Seeing me, she pulled me aside to gossip. Did you hear? Lin Yi resigned. I was surprised. Resigned? That's sudden. Who knows? Maybe he felt embarrassed, Xiaowen scoffed. After you left, the manager called us together. First, he praised us, then tore into Lin Yi, saying his views were messed up, and he didn't even have the guts of the two young women here. Lin Yi's face looked awful for days. Then he quit. Since he left, it feels like the air is fresher, Xiaowen said, taking a deep breath. Just then, the elevator doors opened, and two young men stepped out to check out. After handling it, Xiaowen sent a cleaning lady to tidy the room. Not even 2 minutes later, the front desk phone rang. Xiaowen's expression grew darker as she answered. I could hear faint sobbing from the line. Go ahead. I'll watch the desk for you, I offered. Xiaowen thanked me and rushed to the elevator. A while later, she returned, helping the cleaning lady downstairs. Both looked pale, retching as they came down. Those two guys, they were seriously twisted, Xiaowen muttered. You have no idea how disgusting that room was. It smelled horrible, like a mix of bodily fluids, excrement, and leftover toys. It was beyond filthy. I silently made a mental note for my next summer job, excluding the hotel industry first. The end.